It was the summer of 1969. Most of the world was talking about the fact that, in just a few weeks, humans would walk on the moon. But near a small village in Yugoslavia, a 34-year-old man had a very different kind of journey in mind. Instead of going up, he was going down, and not just for a few hours. Milutin Veljković's plan was to enter a cave called Samar and live there for 15 months. Now, when I say live in a cave, don't picture a little tent set up near the entrance. It wasn't like that. His living area was roughly 900 meters inside the cave. A real cave where sunlight couldn't reach, water flowed through the passages, and narrow tunnels connected one section to another. He brought food, a radio, measuring instruments, a typewriter, medicine, and even a few animals. Then the entrance was secured. Because this wasn't a camping trip, Milutin wanted to break the existing record of 109 days spent living underground. But what he didn't know at the time was this: 109 days would only be the beginning of what he was about to go through. During his time inside the cave, he would have to deal with a flood, experience hallucinations, and at one point, when there was no other way to solve the problem without leaving the cave, he would have to pull out one of his own teeth. The total amount of time he would spend underground, 463 days. His name was Milutin Veljković. He was a Yugoslav electrician, a physics student, a speleologist, and the kind of man who looked at an underground record and decided that 109 days was not enough. On June 24, 1969, at the age of 34, he entered Samar Cave near the village of Kopajkošara. His plan was not to visit it. His plan was to live there for 15 months. Samar was not a clean research bunker with white walls and a controlled climate. It was a wild limestone cave shaped by water, kilometers of tunnels, pools, cascades, narrow passages, and chambers that could change when the river rose. Milutin's living space was roughly 900 meters from the entrance. Every crate, lamp, tool, can of food, and piece of equipment had to be carried into a place that was never designed to keep a human comfortable. The cave did not become safe because he decided to live inside it. Accounts describe the entrance being secured so the record could not be broken by an unnoticed visit outside or by another person entering to keep him company. Milutin maintained radio contact with the village. A generator powered the radio and limited electric lighting. He also had medicine, gas for cooking, a microscope, a typewriter, and instruments for measuring temperature and humidity. This was isolation from human presence, not total disconnection from human support, and that distinction matters. Milutin was alone from other people, but he was not the only living creature in the cave. Contemporary accounts describe a dog, a cat, and several birds, chickens, ducks, or geese being brought underground with him. They were companionship, but they were also part of his observations. How would animals eat, sleep, behave, and reproduce in a world without sunrise? The cave was becoming a home, a field station, and an experiment at the same time. A life that lasts 15 months cannot be built from dramatic moments alone. Most of it is repetition. Open a can, heat water, make coffee, check the radio, feed the animals, measure the air, walk the same wet passage, write another page. Milutin survived mostly on canned and dried food. He kept a detailed diary, eventually turning the experience into a book called Under the Sky of Stone. The diary gave each day a shape. Without it, hundreds of nearly identical days could have collapsed into one. A cave removes one of the strongest signals the human body receives: daylight. Years earlier, French researcher Michel Siffre had entered a cave without clocks and discovered that his sleep and waking periods began to drift. After 63 days underground, he underestimated the time that had passed by roughly 2 weeks. Later, cave studies helped establish that the human body can free run when light and social schedules disappear. But Milutin's situation was different. He had radio contact, artificial light, instruments, and a written record. We should not pretend we possess a precise medical map of his internal clock. What we know is that the same view, the same darkness, and the same confined world continued for 463 days. Milutin did not spend every day waiting for the record to end. He explored. Local accounts say he collected cave animals, examined samples, measured the environment, and carried out archaeological work. During the stay, he reportedly found animal bones, a human jaw, and an old spear whose exact age was uncertain. Inside a world that seemed empty, the stone kept revealing evidence that other lives had passed through it long before him. The cave was isolated from the present. It was not isolated from history. Then the cave began to enter his mind. Milutin later described hallucinations during the stay. That word can suggest monsters or madness, but isolation hallucinations do not need to look like a horror film. Under monotony, stress, disrupted sleep, and limited sensory variety, the brain can misinterpret sounds, shadows, memories, and expectations. A drop of water becomes a signal. A movement at the edge of the light becomes a presence. And when no other human is there to confirm what you saw, the question can remain with you for hours. The most immediate danger did not come from loneliness. It came from water. Samar Cave was shaped by a sinking river. When heavy water entered the system, familiar passages could become channels, pools could rise, and a quiet camp could suddenly sit beside a moving threat. Milutin's account includes a struggle with flooding inside the cave. There was no emergency vehicle waiting outside his room. There was stone, rising water, radio contact, and the knowledge that a record meant nothing if the cave became impossible to survive. Then came a smaller problem with a brutally simple solution. A tooth began causing him serious trouble. Above ground, it would have meant a dentist, anesthetic, sterile instruments, and a short journey home. Underground, leaving the cave would end the attempt. Milutin chose to remove the tooth himself. The surviving accounts do not require us to invent a graphic scene. The fact is enough. In a damp cave isolated from another human hand, he performed a procedure most people struggle to imagine even in a clinic. The radio meant Milutin could hear another human voice, but a voice through static is not a face across a table. It cannot share the weight of a frightening sound. It cannot notice that you are becoming quieter. It cannot step into the passage and confirm that the shadow was only stone. His diary later described longing for his wife and the pressure of prolonged separation. The radio connected him to the world. It also reminded him that the world was somewhere else. At 109 days, Milutin had passed the record he set out to beat. He could have stopped there. Instead, he continued. That decision changes the meaning of the story. After the record, every additional day was no longer required to prove he could stay underground longer than the man before him. The days became a test of his own promise. 15 months beneath a stone sky. A record has a finish line. An extreme commitment has to survive the empty distance before it. It is tempting to turn 15 months underground into a list of dramatic biological damage. Thin bones, a shrinking brain, a permanently chaotic heart. But the surviving public record does not give us reliable measurements for claims like those. What it does give us is more human and more credible. He endured monotony, physical risk, limited food, restricted light, prolonged separation, hallucinations, a flood, and a medical crisis he had to manage himself. The honest story does not need invented neuroscience. The documented conditions were already extreme. In late September 1970, the barrier at Samar Cave was opened. Milutin stepped toward daylight after 463 days beneath the earth. Local accounts describe thousands of people gathering to see him emerge. The private world of dripping water, radio static, animals, notebooks, and stone suddenly opened into faces, voices, cameras, and sky. Some Serbian reports count the stay as 464 days by including both the first and last date. Guinness records it as 463. Either number describes the same astonishing fact. He had lived underground for about 15 months. His stay entered the record books, but its value is not the same as a modern controlled scientific trial. We do not have complete public physiological data for every claim that can be attached to his name. What remains is a rare field record of endurance. One man maintaining a life inside a wild cave for more than a year, while observing the environment and documenting what happened to him. He did not prove that humans are built to live underground. He showed how much structure, support, work, and stubbornness it takes to remain there. While the world looked upward in 1969, Milutin Veljković disappeared beneath it. For 463 days, the sky above him was stone. The cave did not stop being wet, dangerous, monotonous, or dark simply because he learned how to live there. It only became familiar, and perhaps that is the unsettling part. A human being can adapt to almost any world, provided he remains inside it long enough. Every choice changes something, eventually.